thank you for coming to speak with us.
Of course.
The voting issues you've talked about, including now the Electoral College registration and so on, those are state issues at present. The state legislatures really have control over those things. And the Supreme Court has gutted much of the Voting Rights Act, and they've gutted campaign financing. This is not something that the executive has a whole lot of control over. This is something that is going to require constitutional amendments. How would you, as president, try to help make those things happen? You're not directly involved. It's Congress and then it's state legislatures. In sort of a more general sense, we've given too much power to the executive. Are you willing to give some of that up?
Great questions. So all of those reforms that I just mentioned primarily are focused at the federal level. So when I talked about banning political action committee contributions, those would be to federal candidates. You're right, states, local counties, and other jurisdictions would be able to make their own decisions when it came to that. Term limits.
Campaign finance reform. That's why I think even that is a constitutional amendment issue.
Yeah, you're right. So a couple of constitutional questions here. Term limits, clearly a constitutional question. The Citizens United decision from 2010, where the Supreme Court said that corporations are people and money is speech, and therefore corporations can spend unlimited amounts of money to affect elections and legislation or purchase elections and legislation. If we were to address corporate personhood, that might also have to be a constitutional amendment. But in order to get that done, and obviously we've amended the Constitution many times in this country, you need a president who channels the frustration that so many of us have with a system that is out of touch for so many of our fellow Americans right now, that truly is rigged in the favor of those who can afford to purchase influence and outcomes. I think a president who could do that could help pass the amendments necessary at a federal level. I also mentioned investing in election security. We know the Russians have attacked us before. We know they are likely to attack us again. We know that there is some question about the legitimacy of the Secretary of State's efforts to protect against further invasions. So federal investment and coordination to make sure that we have paper receipts at the ballot box, that we audit those elections, I think that can be a federal issue as well. And then I'll say this, I think we can also lead by example. This campaign accepts no political action committee money, no help from lobbyists, no help from corporations or special interests. We've also taken the fossil fuel pledge so that there's not any real or perceived conflict of interest with oil and gas companies as we seek to free ourselves from the dependence on fossil fuels. And on your last question, the short answer is yes, you're absolutely right. This country, through our representatives in Congress, have ceded our power to the executive. The last time really that we lawfully declared war was in World War II. We've been passing these authorizations for the use of military force, and then really as a country, at least when it comes to Congress, have been at war on autopilot. It was 18 years ago that we debated an authorization that has us in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, and those other countries that I mentioned today. We need to bring those wars to a close. We need to return power to people through the representatives in Congress to make those wars or to end those wars. So yes, I think it's important that the executive cedes some of this power back to the people's representatives in Congress. Thanks for asking the question.